Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and we're continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and we're looping back around to the Super Nintendo, because I know what you're thinking, what is new in Super Nintendo land in MiSTer? And that is because a few weeks ago, MSU1 support was added to the core, and that's going to give us CD quality audio and the ability to do a lot other wild things with this console in MiSTer. Before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But I'm sure you've seen this many times, the intro to A Link to the Past. Absolutely spectacular. I love how the Triforce comes in, but nothing really seems different here, and that is because this is just a standard intro. But the MSU1 expansion chip, which is wholly imaginary, does not exist as real hardware, only as FPGA code, allows makers to do different things with the hardware that was never possible before. Such as something like this. Enter our name, hit end, start the game, and we are watching a full motion video cutscene. Obviously that was never possible on the original Super Nintendo. This is basically like the Super Nintendo CD in an imaginary bit of hardware. This all exists in FPGA code, it does not exist in silicon, but the thing about FPGA is it's basically the same thing, which means this is kind of like a Super Nintendo CD on your MiSTer. Now the question is, how does this work? If we take a look at a folder downloaded this ROM, A Link to the Past, for the MSU1 version, you're going to see a ton of different files, a lot of PCM audio files which are going to completely change the soundtrack up. And if we go and actually look at the size of the ROM, that is 205 megabytes. Now I don't know if you know what the size of standard Super Nintendo ROMs are. They are not anywhere close to that. They're like 2 to 4 megabytes if you are lucky. Some got a little bit bigger, but we're talking in megabits, not megabytes. Something like Chrono Trigger, same thing. The folder's going to be filled with all these PCM audio tracks, and that is something that the Super Nintendo cannot play as base hardware. But now that MSU1 support has been incorporated into MiSTer, we can experience it here, and that is spectacular. It doesn't just work on MiSTer, it also works on some of the flash carts and some emulators as well, but it's great to have this feature. You want to install the ROM to your MiSTer, just copy the folder over into your SNES games and you're good to go. You'll see here now we can load bin files as well as some other formats. If you update the core, just make sure you've updated recently. If we go into Ghosts and Goblins, you're going to see a directory here, and there's going to be an SFC MSUL file. That is one of the launchables. And I know what you're thinking. You've heard the soundtrack to this game many times before, but you've never heard it like this. So go ahead and listen for like 30-40 seconds and I'll be right back. Enjoy. Yeah, that is definitely not the soundtrack in the original cartridges, and trust me, I own it, but it sounds spectacular. Now, it is wholly different than the original game, and if you're not into that, the great part is you don't have to play it. But if you want to play around with this, it is absolutely spectacular, and I can't recommend it enough. It makes some games feel almost like playing them for the first time. But where do you get these files? Now, I can't really link to them because that is always dangerous, but archive.org is going to be your friend. If you just search SNES MSU1, you're going to see a lot of different collections here, and there's one in particular. I'll click on the screen. You're going to see a massive amount of fan-made games, the original game, with a lot of different enhancements. The nice part is you can download them individually, and you'll see the list is just spectacular of how many MSU1 compatible games have been made and uploaded online. Now, of course, you're supposed to own these games as original cartridges. I do own the ones I'm showing you, and just remember that's kind of the rule, and you can do with that as you will. But if you remember Super Mario World, it sounds a very particular way, and it sounds like this. So go ahead and listen and kind of ingest that. Now let's see what it sounds like on the new MSU1. I mean, that's both amazing and so strange at the same time. I know that song by heart. I know what it's supposed to sound like, and it sounds completely different. I'm into it. I think you will be too. But it isn't just different soundtracks, obviously I showed earlier, but now with this imaginary FPGA-based MSU1 enhancement chip, you can play full motion video, and the specs on this is it can address 4 gigabytes of data on any one ROM, and that would be a lot more than the 650 to 700 megabytes the Super Nintendo Entertainment System CD would have been capable of using if that had actually released onto the market. But that's what this basically is. It's a Super Nintendo CD, except it is an FPGA form. And when people tore down the SNES CD, they found via their examinations that it really didn't add any enhancements to the graphical capabilities of a Super Nintendo, but it did allow for CD quality audio, it did allow for full motion video, and all the other trimmings that you would expect out of a CD-based console, something like the Sega CD. It was a different delivery medium that allowed the hardware to do different things, like that Red Book quality audio or full motion video. And I just love how that cutscene launches right into the game seamlessly, and it ties together really well. Now I will say some things are very dramatic, like the FMVs, and some things aren't as dramatic, like the orchestral score to Donkey Kong Country 2. It sounds great on the MSU1, but it's not that dramatic, but go ahead and listen. Sounds amazing, but it's not as dramatic. Or something like Proteus here. It always had a great soundtrack, and the MSU1 version is a lot of fun, but it's not as punchy as something like Super Mario World. But again, you gotta hear it. Speaking of dramatic though, the music in Mega Man X is spectacular, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you the MSU1 version, then the Super Nintendo original, so you can hear just how different they are. You don't need to listen closely either. I mean, that is just a massive difference, and that's not to say that the soundtrack on Mega Man X on the original Super Nintendo version is bad whatsoever. It is iconic, and maybe you don't like this new version, and that is fine. You can pick and choose what versions you want. I was going to let you listen to a little bit of the Chrono Trigger version, but this did throw up a copyright strike, so unfortunately I had to pull that. But there's such a gigantic list of MSU1 capable games, and I'm sure there's going to be more made. And now that it is in the official MiSTer branch with that Super Nintendo core with compatibility, you should definitely check it out. I waited to make this video because it was still on unstable for a bit, but now it is officially combined into the main branch, and you can play it whenever you want. And that is so cool. Basically, MiSTer is become a Super Nintendo Entertainment System CD player, and it's a bummer that console never launched, but I'm sure it wouldn't have been that great because look at the Sega CD, it never really works when you do that add-on. But yeah, MSU1 support is here for MiSTer on the SNES core, and you should definitely check it out. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'll have another video next week on MiSTer and videos throughout the week. Bye bye.